The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
All right. It's yet the 20th rainy evening as we start the Dukes Court here in Pittsburgh. Another miserable evening. But we're going to make it a little brighter. We're going to make it brighter with Chris Mud Pie Man Fletcher, the famous Gary Woo Woo Kinn, and I'm Dave the Zesty Dragon Finoli.
Oh, the generator was working overtime, I see.
Absolutely.
Dragon, like a bad Chinese restaurant, Dave.
Oh, my God. Well, that's not a bad name.
No,
that's not a bad name. Maybe that can be our next life here. Open up a Chinese restaurant where we can do the podcast and call it.
No, we can also have the rude fortune cookies where you open up and you get things like "You'll never amount to much," or "You were adopted," or things like that.
Oh, that's the dream. That's the dream down the road. I think rude fortune cookies, your idea can be a big hit, my friend.
Scrap the podcast. Let's go with the rude fortune cookie business.
I like it. Oh my. Well, tonight we're gonna talk about John Smoltz, who, I know in the day we wish we had a few rude fortune cookies for him, but brilliant pitcher, a killer on the Pirates, and basically apparently one of the most powerful men in baseball. He's on the competition committee. Certainly is a hell of a color man, and he has come up with some interesting things because he believes the game is dying and needs an overhaul quick. A couple of things he proposed that I don't agree with. He thinks the shift is single-handedly killing the game. I disagree with that. I'm not opposed to the shift. I think it's something that can be adjusted to, and you don't want the shift. You learn to hit the opposite way. You learn to do some other things. But he wants to stop the exploitation of the disabled list, which is certainly something I've been for. My thought is a 30-man roster, but only 25 eligible to play every evening, not unlike hockey. I kind of like how hockey has that set up. I'd also go a 13-pitcher maximum because one of his other things is certainly the amount of pitching changes over the course of a game, which I had always been against doing anything about that, thinking that's part of the game, but maybe it's time to put a limit on how many pitchers you can have in a game. The other day, if I'm not mistaken, it was Philadelphia and Miami used a record 15 pitchers in a ball game, which borders on the ridiculous after a bit. But probably the most interesting thing he proposes here, and what we'll kind of focus on tonight, is the setup of the standings. He's proposing using the minor league system where you have a first half winner and a second half winner, and the seedings are based on that, whereas the playoffs would be the first half winner versus the second half winner in a best of three playoff, and in the case of somebody who wins both halves of a race, then playing the team with the second best record in that division. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that aspect. I think it's intriguing, and I understand what he's trying to do. His claim is that 75% of the teams in baseball would have a shot at the title, would have a shot at not tanking at the end of the year, which is becoming a huge problem. I agree with that. His also claim is the American League race has now been over for pretty much since June, and what interest other teams would have not to tank or trade or try to rebuild was over by then. Again, an intriguing idea, but here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking inevitably you're going to be at 32 teams. You're going to expand too. So rather than break it up in what the expected shift would be into four-team divisions in each league, with one or two wild cards. I say break it down to either do what the USL in soccer does and just have two big-ass leagues, two 16-team leagues, where the playoff teams start from first to sixth, and I would go to a 16, or do two 8-team divisions, an East and a West, just like the old days. Again, 2 winners and 4 wild cards, which I think would create more interest there, and it worked like an NL or an NFL thing, where the two best records would get the would get the buys. 4 teams would play a best of 3 playoff, and then would face the winners in the next round. I think at that point, because I would fear the 81 Red syndrome, and that certainly can happen. And while the Yankees, I'm not sure the Yankees would have made the playoffs under that format. I'm not sure at this point, because the Red Sox would have won the first division or first season, and right now it looks like the Tampa Bay I got Steelers on my mind. The Tampa Bay Rays would win the second half and would play the Red Sox in the playoffs, and the Yankees would be left out of this one with the second best record in baseball. So under what I'm saying, you're not going to have that scenario. It would continue to do it. But gentlemen, can I tell you what would be the best thing to make the pennant races vital again?
Tell us,
The best thing would be a ceiling salary cap and a floor salary cap. Because inevitably, if you want to force these guys to spend money, you have to force these guys to spend money. And right now, with the way it's set up, even in a situation like I'm telling you, it can certainly easily be turned into what the American League turned into this year if you have the power teams, and the power teams basically are set up by having some flexibility to spend money and keep your players. Even though, Houston might not have one of the biggest salaries now, they're starting to sign their players over the long term, and it will become that situation because they have some money behind them now. So that would be my way to hopefully make the pennant races valid again. But my other thing is what is ruining the game is the reliance on the metrics the way they are. The lift velocity or whatever the hell it is, which is causing strikeouts out the wazoo. I think A, it's not good for the game. It's not making it a watchable game. But B, the other thing is I'm thinking you're trying to sell the fans on sabermetric stats, and I've been in Saber for years. I still have to have a glossary in front of me to tell me what the hell these things mean. It turns off people. It turns off the selling of the game, and quite frankly, with them relying on it, you're causing too many strikeouts, and it's making it unwatchable. So, to me, you need to put the onus on development. I was watching something the other day where somebody, I think the starting pitching is down to 5.8 innings on average. Yep. You need to develop the damn guys again. You need to develop them pitching better. You need to develop the hitters the way you used to develop the damn hitters. It's okay if they hit 20 home runs a year. People are going to come to see exciting games. People are going to, it gets boring when you have 18 strikeouts a game. I think the Pirates the other night, I was at a game that went to 11 innings. The Pirates had 17 or 18 strikeouts. I don't really find that as entertaining. Train the damn hitters the way you used to train them. Train the pitchers to pitch, not necessarily just to come in and throw 1 or 2 pitches at 100 miles an hour, which is what they're doing. That's why you can't get through a lineup the third time, because you only have 2 pitches. You develop them to have a third pitch and maybe even a fourth pitch, and they'll become effective going into the later rounds. But I digress. We're here to talk about the standings. That's how I would go. I think how intriguing the split.
All the things you said are factors, Dave. All of the things you said are factors beyond just Smoltz's position on a couple details. I mean, I was going to touch on that too. They're all, everything you said is a major factor in what's causing some of the problems in the game. There's no question about it. So,
But yep. I think that's my thoughts. Fletch, I know you're a huge baseball guy, and I know you've put some thought into this, as Gary's put some thought into this. So what do you think about what Smoltz proposes, Fletch?
Well, I guess we'll start with the shifts. I mean, they've always been a part of baseball, but not to the current extreme. I mean, gosh, you'll remember, Willie Stargell had it happen to him when we were wee young fans. But here's the reason I don't like the shifts. Because Joe Madden gets credit with doing it when he was with the Rays. So that's one big reason to hate the damn shift. And, at this point, it's safe to say the defensive shift really is here to stay. And, it kind of makes sense because for a lot of hitters, they're pretty predictable. We know that the majority of hitters tend to pull ground balls, and they go to the opposite field when they hit flies sometimes. It's a generalization, but it holds up pretty well. So knowing this, it's only natural that teams would begin to move their fielders to accommodate for those tendencies. I mean, it's just gone to an extreme. Dave, you mentioned something that's really important. If you want to beat it, learn to hit the ball the other way. Drop down a bunt occasionally. Here's the other thing about it, guys. No one gets upset when someone brings the infield in a third if Billy Hamilton's up to bat. So, I mean, shifts are part of the game. That's just how it is. Right. I like the limiting of pitching changes. Let's speed up the game. That's a good one. A lot of what he said was not totally off base. It was not a bad thing. It's just the game is being played differently. The development's not happening like it was before. I do like the split season idea, and hopefully Madden's Cubs would be the first team to fall victim to it when it happens again, with the best team getting left out. Although I guess if you have a wild card round, it seems to eliminate the chances of the best overall record being left out. Yeah. We already talked about my other changes in previous weeks, so I'm going to just go through them really quickly. Go easy on the interleague games. To me, it's lost its luster.
Which actually Smoltz does point out in this in this article to do exactly what you're saying there. He wants to eliminate them altogether and just play balanced schedules as they used to under the 16 divisions and the one league. So that's a great
right. It used to be 18 and 12, 18 games against your division opponents, 12 against the other, and it was good. Yeah. Adjust the scheduling, like I just said there. DH or no DH, make up your mind, one way or another. I think it just you need to be playing the same rules. And we've already talked about. I really don't like the one-game playoff. But here's some other things that I think would improve the baseball experience. Stop requiring managers to wear uniforms. Some of those guys should not be wearing uniforms. It's just stupid. Never allow Bartolo Colon to wear stripes. That just shouldn't happen at all. Now, I'm going to call this next one the Sean Rodriguez rule, and that means you must be hitting your weight before July 1st or you're automatically cut. Here's some things to think about. I think you need to make gloves smaller. Remember, some of those gloves right now are huge. We don't need that. Yep. Get rid of some of the body armor. Have strikes called electronically.
Oh,
here's a very important one. Lower the price of beer at the park. Another very important one, Dave. This one I know will be close to your heart. Yeah. Bring back the donut burger. That was a key thing that we lost at PNC Park.
That was one of my great PNC Park moments of all time. If we ever write the book on PNC Park, you downing by yourself, because you recall I had to split mine with Tony. You down one by yourself, and that was.
I did.
I'm in tears talking about it right now.
I embraced my inner Bartolo Colon on that one, and I took it all down.
You weren't allowed to wear stripes that day, as I recall.
I was not. Players should wear stirrup socks again. Across the board.
That's a gift.
Batting gloves. Get rid of them. Here's my favorite, though. Have Random reporters punch Joe Madden during press conferences.
The kangaroo punch? The monkey punch?
Oh, I like it.
Oh, man.
Here's one for our friend Dan Russell. Make all players have to wear flannel uniforms, especially in St. Louis in August. And here's one from your youth, Dave. Each team must have a pitcher with thick glasses like Bob Beal to scare the bejesus out of the opposing hitter.
Ryan Duran, yeah.
I remember that. Actually, the day he struck out 18 was a humid day. And that was, I remember reading articles. He scared the piss out of, I think it was the Phillies, that evening because it had rained so much and Bob's glasses were fogging up left and right.
No.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So a couple other things. You got to outlaw chew and sunflower seeds and bubble gum. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a dugout after a game, but it's a real shithole. Here's one that's a little intriguing, Dave. I think you need to force players to take a baseball history quiz. Let them know about the game that they're playing. Have them know about the legacy of Jackie Robinson, and maybe we'll see some better citizens along the way along with that. And finally, retire the number 21.
You had me till there, Fletch. You know I'm not for that.
Guys, it's got to go. It's got to happen.
It
needs to happen. It needs to happen while Vera Clemente is still alive.
Well, that would be the good thing to do if she was. But you know that mass retirement thing. That doesn't mean we'll have a number 21 day where everybody wears 21, where you don't know who the hell is who.
Well, I think that's a little much, but I think you retire the number. Maybe one team wears 42 and the other team wears 21. How's that? How's that, Dave?
I'd like them to put a name on their damn back.
How about they're all named Clemente that day? How's that?
All right. Oh, you're killing me. But these are good changes. Is one of them get rid of the metrics? Can you give me that?
I will give you that too, because every year I have to learn these new terms.
Well, what the hell is wrong with a 300 hitter? Why is it bad to have a 300 hitter and a 100 RBI man?
Well, I'll tell you the one stat that is overrated, and that's win-loss record. That one I can lose.
I would agree with, but a 300 hitter is an exceptional hitter. I don't care if he has 5 home runs or 6 home runs. He's still a good damn hitter, and I want him on my team. And a guy who's hitting 100 RBIs in the clutch, I don't need 20 different ways to tell me what a clutch hitter is. He's knocking in runs, okay?
There you go, Dave. I'm with you on that 100%.
Well, Dave, it's lucky you don't live in Philadelphia, because you would see Scott Kingery hitting .216 and striking out 130 times in 390 at-bats, hitting third. And even in Los Angeles, we decide we got to constantly put Kike Hernandez in the third or fourth slot, hitting .220 with probably a third of the at-bat strikeouts.
That would piss me off because your number 3 guy is your best hitter.
It's gone nuts. I completely agree. So.
Oh, my God. If a metric, who the hell was it the Pirates put as leadoff hitter for a while who you and I and Fletch and Gary, Woo-Woo. We're going to call you Woo-Woo tonight. I'm sorry. I like that too much, Gary. Your number 1 guy is the fast guy. What the hell? Wait a minute. Here's a political thing that just hit my computer screen. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh has never sexually assaulted anyone. So, we'll put that out there, and then we'll talk baseball again.
He certainly didn't. He didn't assault Bartolo Colon. We know that.
It's in there. He did not have stripes on. I couldn't help myself. Oh, man. But, Gary, what do you make of all this John Smoltz stuff?
Well, it's funny. I think I said.
I'm sorry. Let me back up.
Separately.
You gotta discipline me on this, Fletch. Woo-woo. What do you make of all this stuff tonight?
Yeah, it's funny. Smoltz to me, because of his performance on the field, and I think I can't remember. I think he went to Michigan, but I'm not sure he finished there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and honestly, he's pretty cerebral when you listen to him too. He's not the Joe Buck. Look at
no,
me.
he's good.
He's not the Buster Olney and Tom Verducci. I know everything. Just everybody pay attention to me. I mean, he does have a lot of credibility for me, and I think he touches on a lot of things. I think there's a few others. I think we should publish Fletch's list somewhere because that
I do want to publish that online, Fletch. If you
I think
were
we should get quite a bit of readership for a lot of those. Mine aren't quite so emotional, funny, or interesting, but I think Smoltz is a little bit selling himself here, though. A little. We better hurry. Unwatchable. Teams with no chance. We better do it. I don't really agree with any of that. I don't think the game's in great shape right now, but we're still drawing 2.3 million, 2.4 million a team, even with the 5-7% of drop-off. I mean, there's clearly issues in the game. Games are too long. They're boring. There's too many strikeouts, all the thing we're talking about. I mean, but, I think that's a little bit extreme. But I think, I'll get to the split season in a minute. I think, I'm with you, Dave. I kind of like your ideas better. I think you could fix the split season thing with a situation like the 82 Reds. And actually, I don't even think it's the Yankees this year, too. I think the Dodgers would actually miss. I think they would have missed the first half because they weren't anywhere near first. And the second half, I don't think they have the same record the Rockies do. I think it would be the Rockies in Arizona. I think the Dodgers would miss. And not that I care about the Dodgers so much. I don't even like this Dodger team, quite frankly. I'm getting tired of it.
But that's a great point, Gary, because I looked last night. The Diamondbacks are just about under the Pirates at this point. So that team would make the playoffs. Right.
I think there's a way to fix it. I have one thought if you went to a split season. I don't think the powers that be where this leadership would ever go to that. But I think his point about getting it out there, at least we got somebody who's a little more cerebral here and a little less political than worried about pink bats and blue bats and all this other nonsense. He's getting something out there that I think needs to be thought about. So I'm happy for that. Let me touch on them all, though, Dave, and then I'll go to the big one, which you wanted us to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, eliminating the shift doesn't really bother me. I mean, I think it goes. I'm 50-50 on that one. It always has been part of the game, but Fletch hit right on it. Now we shift for 7 of the 9 hitters in the lineup. These guys are not well schooled. It goes back to player development, organizations, everything else, and how to beat it. There's a whole host of teams and even divisions that have no top-of-the-order guys with any speed at all. AL East in particular. I mean, Betts a little bit, but he's really a bopper. I mean, the game's got to change. It's got to change in a lot of ways. It's got to change in construction of order, who you're drafting, construction of lineup, benches, pitchers. You guys touched on the pitchers. I mean, I'm completely fed up with these guys that are all 6'6", who can throw the ball the side of a barn, but they can't get past the 5th inning because all they do is go out and throw. And this metrics nonsense kind of rewards that, actually. Well, the 18 hitters that he faced, he fanned 11 of them, and there was no launch angle, and but he can't get past the 5th inning. He's 6-11. So, I mean, these GMs are justifying themselves with all their Harvard degrees and everything else by supporting this stuff, but they don't realize that they're killing their own franchises, and it's hurting the game in a great deal. And Smoltz has always been an advocate of that. Going back to Leo Mazzoni, if you listen to Glavine, too, and Maddox, they weren't a believer in throwing the ball through the side of a barn, even though Smoltz could do it of those guys. They were a believer in pitching, getting to the 6th or 7th inning, then going to your specialists, throwing the ball every day. Mazzoni was a weirdo, but he thought about throwing the ball in between starts more often, strengthening your arm and shoulders. Nobody does that anymore. Now we protect these guys beyond belief. Doesn't matter if it's a good organization or bad organization, so you have some of the problems you have. The shifts, it's gotten ridiculous, just like the other sports. Baseball is slow to make adjustments. In football, we make all kinds of adjustments. I mean, I hate the pass coverage rules in football now. I think it's a joke, but, they make the changes because they're trying to juice up the offense. Baseball may have to actually do that here because I think it's, for an organization to change or lineups to change or with all the salary and stuff that's committed, you almost have to do something, I think, to change it. Because, I mean, there's some teams like the idiot teams that plays in the city I'm here, they'll hit into this shift 16 times in a row. So, and they're not punished for doing it because they're still making the money. So I think you might have to actually take them out. But if they didn't, I think you could adjust, but I think it's going to be slow to adjust because teams aren't designed to beat it. His touch on the use of relievers, I think, is right on. I mean, we come to the day, I'm fed up with all these visits. 9 visits, it's still too many. It's big league baseball. You know all the personnel. For the same reason these idiots talk about how they know every time somebody goes to the bathroom or strikes out, they ought to know who they're going to go to in key situations or pressure situations. So I'm sorry, maybe it's time to take away. I don't even think you need to be schooling a 20-year-old on how to pitch in the big league. If he's in the big leagues, he should know how to pitch. You should talk to him before the game, and if he can't remember it, you got a bigger issue. No visits to the mound at all might be my situation unless you're going to make a change. And I think we've come to the time where watching some of these games where you're going to 5 relievers to get 5 different hitters in a row, sorry, can't do it. Face 3 hitters, and that's it. I don't care if they're right-handed or left-handed or anything else. I'd probably go to that extreme. The warm-ups bothers me. I mean, you got a guy warming up 3 times in a bullpen. He's got to come in. He's still got to throw 7 pitches. It's just a delay tactic. Take it out. The disabled list nonsense. I mean, that was a Players Association crybaby again. You want to put me on 15-day. I can't play. Fans can't see me and read my Twitter account. Baloney with the 10-day. Goodbye. 15 or 60 are done for the year. Schedule, I think Smoltz is right on the money. We've talked about this before. Minnesota coming to play the Pirates, where the Phillies playing the Kansas City Royals has absolutely no value at all. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that the attendance of some of those games has dropped even below some of the rivalry games that each roster has. It's a joke. It was a good try by Selig. It worked for a little while. We know even the Yankees and Mets has lost its luster. It wasn't even on national TV half the games this year. So, I mean, I think the time has come to get rid of that. I think and go back to schedules that mean something in each league. I think Smoltz has hit on something. That interleague stuff is not juicing up the game. It's not making the game any better. It's not driving up the interest. Like your idea, Dave, about the roster, the 40-man roster, goodbye. Actually, in my mind, maybe that ought to be better in April when guys are coming out of spring training, haven't thrown the ball that much. Maybe by mid-April, it's got to be over, first 2-3 weeks of the season. But I wouldn't even have it at all. I kind of like the way hockey does it, too, and I think you got to name it before that day. I think the 2 things that never get talked about here that I keep pounding on, and I'm going to continue to pound on, I like Fletcher's idea about the smaller gloves. Some of these outfield gloves in particular, you don't even have to get near the ball anymore. You just throw that thing up there, and it gets trapped in a big trap that's almost like a lacrosse cage. Maybe their time is come to go with that. To me, the 2 things that keep getting ignored, and somebody needs to take control of it. And again, I point to our wonderful, ferocious front office in New York. The strike zone is too small. Okay, every account is 3-2, 3-1. And these pitchers who are trained to do nothing other than throw the ball through the side of a barn, most big league hitters can connect with that thing. If it's between the belt and the knees, over the heart of the plate. Strike zone should be bigger. It would juice up the offense. It would make the game speed along. And you have to learn to pitch a little bit more. I think it would help in every aspect. And I'm sorry, if Joe West's strike zone is just this, I don't care if he's around 75 years or not, call the strike zone the way it is or you're out. Sorry. I mean, this is not an ego fest. Nobody comes to see you umpire the 9 innings. The strike zone is knees to the letter and start calling. And if you don't, we are going to go to machines. I guarantee you that the union would get some attention about that if you said you were going to do it. And the other thing I think is a problem, and I see it here all the time, there's no foul territory in these junky new ballparks that they built. I mean, one of the reasons Oakland's winning isn't because of these geniuses or Billy Beane and his money ball. It's the fact that there's probably 2 or 3 pop-outs a game that go between home plate to first base to third base every single game. Their pitchers can challenge more. They can get the ball over the plate more and all that kind of stuff. Some of these new ballparks, I know I'll keep talking about the fan experience. Well, the fan experience isn't good when you're playing 345 for 9 innings. I mean, if these parks are going to get renovated or you're going to build new ones, there has to be a defined amount of foul territory down the lines, in behind home plate first to third, and honestly, the power alleys and the fences have to be, I think, set at a minimum. This ballpark in Philadelphia, the one in Yankee Stadium, is a joke. I could hit the ball out in the power alley in Philadelphia in right center, and I'm 56 years old. I mean, it's just a joke. I mean, that kind of stuff, then the pitchers won't challenge, then the strike zone's too small. We got all these situations of standing around. So I think, I'd add to some of the things that Smoltz is doing, and I think he's right on the money with some of the points that he makes. In the split season, if you did go to it, I think you could fix it. I mean, you still have to look. I don't think you want to devalue the 154 games, which I think he suggested going to, which I would do. I don't think you want to devalue that. So if you are the best team combined over that, well, then you win, even if you didn't win a first or second half, which would create all kinds of controversy. But you probably could fix it that way. But I think rather than go that way, I think, Dave, your point is right on the money. If there's an ownership group that continues to do the wrong thing, as soon as they get to July 1st, like Reinsdorf used to be in Chicago, there's a couple other organizations out there now that are doing that. If your organization continues to do the wrong thing at that time of the season, then I think the league ownership group as a whole, and I think the commissioner's office has to deal with it. And financially, the way to deal with it is minimum and maximum. I couldn't agree more. But, I don't want to take that completely away like Smoltz says, because, you look at the Tampa Bay situation. When I was down there, those people aren't particularly passionate about it. They're more passionate about their fishing or sitting on the Clearwater beaches or whatever. But there was a lot of criticism about some of the moves that they made. Well, did they really give up that much? Steven Souza hit 28 home runs, but he struck out 100,000 times. He wasn't all that good. They got rid of a lot of guys that were dead weight, too much money, even Ramos to a degree. And they picked up a lot of young guys that turned it around. So, I don't think you want to punish that either. And I think Smoltz's system would actually punish some of those organizations. I think, who knows if Tampa's going to be this good next year, but look at all the talent that they picked up. Look at the way the organization is working. He certainly got a stadium problem, but I would say next year they're probably a pretty good favorite to play for some wild card spot and maybe even do a little better than that. So, the split season might take that away a little bit. I think you want to give some teams – I think that the financial management's one thing, but I don't think you want to take away something that's always been part of the game, and to me is a good part of the game. Why are Oakland and Tampa such good stories this year? You take away the sabermetrics nonsense. The fact of the matter is both those organizations retooled, got rid of a lot of big money, kept a few key players, and look where we are. So, they are competing very well. It wouldn't surprise me with the schedules this week if Oakland passes the Yankees go out there, and maybe even they get dumped. It wouldn't be a huge surprise. So, I don't really want to tear the whole thing up by going to a split season. I think you could fix it. I kind of like the idea better of whether you go to 4-4s or 2-8s, reward the division winners, make the other teams have a little bit of a penalty to get in. The one game's a joke. I agree, 3 games set. That's another reason to cut the season to 154 games. I think it would be a better product in the long run. But I'm glad that somebody came out and actually criticized some of these sacred gods now, like, the big-time organizations, the numbers, emphasis on the numbers. At least somebody inside the game, quite frankly, had the balls to come out and call it out. We need to take a look at that, and I'm thankful for Smoltz doing that. So that's my
the veterans, from every veteran who's ever commented on it, I don't believe they like it either. But, and I'm a numbers guy. I think we're all numbers guys. I think that's why we enjoy Stratomatic so much. But, I don't – every year we come out with 5 or 6 different ways to analyze a damn game. And take away what it does to the game on the teams. I'm talking purely from selling it to fans, which – this is the first year in about 15, I believe, where the average attendance dipped under 30,000.
Yep.
That's a significant drop in a year. It's a drop of almost 3,000 a game. And I think part of the problem is this is every time you pick up a baseball book now, it's not just me going out and buying Baseball Prospectus where it's going to be like that. It's every damn magazine, every day, even on the damn baseball cards, is these stats that nobody knows what the hell they're telling them. I'm not saying dummy up the game, but I don't think in the selling part there was anything wrong with selling a 300 hitter, selling a 100 RBI man. They're not useless stats, but
it's not brains. It's who you're choosing. Watching this fool. The Phillies always take the cheapest route possible. They always take the cheapest route possible in the manager slot. Somebody who's not going to be hired by anybody else or somebody who doesn't cost anything. To watch this fool during that stretch run and the way he would talk, you're right, Dave. It sounds like it's like insurance salesman talking. It's choice of leaders. Now, the guy in St. Louis and the guy down in Atlanta, they may use those numbers. They don't chatter on about that all the time. Okay? Bean was a self-promoter. Let's face it. And, he had to listen to this Moneyball nonsense all the time. And I'm not really sure that's really what won anyway. What won was the park and 3 tremendous starting pitchers. Let's face it. Okay?
Well, and back then, what happened soon after? I mean, they went through a decade.
That's right.
Of...
They've been a failure most of the time over that tenure that he was there. So, I think it's who you're choosing to talk about it. Honestly, this Dodger guy last year, I think I've mentioned this before, there's pretty good documented evidence that last year with Hill sailing along, in that game, too, his metrics and his numbers, like some of these fools like to say, stink after the 6th inning. Well, if I ask you two that the few times you see Rich Hill, could you not say that yourself? Did you really need a bunch of reports to tell you that? They call down to the dugout and they tell Roberts to make a change to burn out the bullpen, which it did. It cost them in that World Series. When you have that kind of stuff going on, you're right. You hire a guy to manage a big league team. You ought to know that a guy hitting 275 but driving in 130 runs is probably more valuable than a guy hitting 310 like Bonilla used to be and never get a big RBI. I don't think we need a bunch of books of statistics to do that. And I think it will go, and I think it will eventually fade over time. Do I think it's a tool? Again, I do. But I think it's who you're choosing to talk about it. Last week in a game that the Phillies absolutely had to have against the Braves, there's a guy by the name of Garcia here in the bullpen who, in his last 11 appearances, has given up 10 runs and 3 home runs. Kapler gets up in the press conference afterwards, and even old school, people who support the numbers here, so to speak, over the last 15 years on the broadcast, a couple of their commentators, basically went nuts because he got up and said, well, we profiled that, and as we saw Garcia's statistics and who we thought he would be in there with, we left him in there during those 3 hitters. Well, he walked 1, he gave up 2 singles, and the game was lost, and a couple of days later, they were virtually eliminated. When you have that kind of decision-making, without kind of judgment, and you're hiring people who are speaking in front of the press to do that, that's a problem. I'm not saying you push it under the rug, but I think you're right, Dave. Beyond the publications and that kind of talk, I don't think people are tuning in when you're playing 150, 460 games to hear about some kind of statistical, actuarial analysis. They want to hear why you did what you did, and what are you going to do about it the next time to prevent it from happening.
Right.
Okay? And that's where I think we've gotten lost, and I used to argue with that with some people here that were big supporters of Bean. I said, you'll see. I said, this will come back to bite. And honestly, I think this Dodger team right now, I think what I see with those goofy lineups that Roberts chooses, Puig's been the best player in the world in September. What in the world do you have him hitting 8 for? Because what, the numbers told you to do that? It's just insane. So you have a guy hitting 213 who strikes out once of every 3 at-bats, hitting 30. You going to do that in the postseason too? It just doesn't make any sense. And if anybody knows anything about baseball history, these teams play on a pattern. You get into a period where your lineup's working and it's clicking. These statistics fly directly in the face of that with these 62 different lineup combinations and stuff like that. You put all that together with the bad pitching development. Smoltz has been very critical about pitching development in the past for all the reasons you described, Dave. And I don't see it getting better. It's actually getting worse. Everybody wants that guy who can throw the ball through the side of a barn, 100 miles an hour. Trouble is he can't go past the 5th inning. So, then you lengthen the game with this kind of stuff, and I think you have to – I don't know how you do it, but some team that comes up with some starting pitchers that can actually pitch a little bit, like a Zane Smith or a Glavine or something like that, and get later and go deeper and still have a strong bullpen, I think you're going to see a change back again. There's certainly copycat mentality. I think you'll see it back again. And I think
here's the thing about baseball, guys, and one of the things that I think we all like about it, it is resilient. Let's think back to the 1970s and what was happening there when especially in the American League, where the pitchers were so dominant. What did they do? They came up with the idea of the designated hitter. So they got together and they figured that out. So I'm hoping that the leadership will try some of the things that Smoltz said, that they'll go through, they'll look at the game, they'll see, they're smart enough to know what's good about baseball. And, I think it's time for them to take that back and get away from, you're right. The statistics, sometimes you have to have a gut feel. Sometimes you have to know psychologically which of your players are in a groove at this point.
Right.
Who hits well against a specific pitcher? That's always good to know. But some of these other things, it's taken the magic out of baseball, and I think that's what we miss.
Well, I mean, I think it is resilient, Fletch, and I think it will stay resilient. I do think there's a concentration problem with a younger group. But, talking about, these pink bats and military hats and numbers and all this kind of stuff is not going to get a weaker attention span youth back. What's going to get it back is a quick-moving, entertaining game with possibly a little bit more run scoring, shifting tides like any other sport, that kind of stuff. And we clearly don't have any of that now.
Put the ball in play, fellas. Put the ball in play.
Ball in play. I couldn't agree more. Far more than now.
It's lazy analysis. It's lazy development. It's trying to perfect everything through numbers, which it's lazy. It's just lazy. You're right, Fletch. Put the damn ball in play. That's
watch
I'm counting here right now. There are 6 in baseball perspective. They have 6 different figures to say ERA. What the hell's the difference with ERA? I mean,
junk.
But I digress because we have a football game tonight, and they don't go by the analysis that baseball goes by. But you know what? Our Steelers are still in trouble. Our Steelers are looking for defensive war or defensive FIP to be able to tell them. How can I play these players to be more effective?
Yeah, they need to shift. They need to shift.
Yeah, except
they need to actually shift to the middle of the damn field. That's where the tight end's been running wild all year.
Man. Now today, we're blaming everything on the team, not us, but in general people, blaming everything on Le'Veon Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, and Antonio Brown. And their different whinings, and I mean, they are who they are. I mean, that's not the reason this team is bad today. Le'Veon, obviously now the Steelers have committed to trading Le'Veon Bell, and it sounds like the New York Jets are the leading candidate to take him on. But you know what Le'Veon Bell's reaction was today to that? Have you seen that?
I have not. Please.
He is upset because he thinks people don't appreciate him. He said, all you guys have to do is say thanks. I feel unappreciated. Who knew? You didn't have to sign him to a $20 million a year contract.
It's a hell of a lot cheaper than $20 million.
I'm saying,
why didn't they do that?
Why didn't Colbert just thank him, for God's sake? But, I mean, one of the big problems between this and the team that won 2 Super Bowls, there's no leadership on this team. Ben is supposed to be the leader, and my feelings about the guy. And last week I'm looking at TV, and Fitchner is trying to talk to him, and looking like he could give a shit what Fitchner is telling him. I mean, but that's not the reason they're losing. And I'm getting a little tired of this being the concentration by the media and this being the concentration by the fans. They're scoring points, for God's sake, and if Ben didn't drop the damn ball 6 times in the opener, they would have blown out the Browns that day. So it has nothing to do with the offense. James Conner might not be the back that Le'Veon Bell is, but with him in there, there's still a great offense. People need to get off that track and look to the damn defense. This 3-4 defense is driven by its linebackers. Bud Dupree last week, we talked about this, more offside penalties than tackles. John Bostic, he's been okay. Vince Williams has just been okay. T.J. Watt is a little bit above average the first game, then non-existent yesterday. But the problem with this, guys, is listen to the backups. The great Steeler teams had great backups.
Yep.
Anthony Chickalow, L.J. Fort, Tyler Medikevich, who's he's certainly an aggressive guy, but, he weighs as much as I do, and I may be aggressive, but I sure as hell am not going to be able to make any tackles on the field. There is no depth on this team. The cornerbacks, other than Hayden, are small. Artie Burns, he's gotten worse every year. Sean Davis has gotten worse at the free safety. If Edmonds is supposedly your future, get him in the goddamn game, because you get away from Hayward, Hargrave, and Tuitt, and then a 3-4 defense, we all know they're just basically plugging up the middle. They're not going to get a lot of pressure. They're not going to be able to make this defense click. These guys suck. It's Colbert's responsibility to have gotten good players. It's Tomlin's responsibility to have made adjustments in Keith Butler. This has been a problem for 3 years. Quit just laying out on Le'Veon Bell's tweets, on Roethlisberger, on Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown isn't playing poorly. He just wants the damn ball. And he sounds like an ass, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if there's anything wrong about the bitching that he wants the ball. He looks like an ass, but at least he wants a win. Now, missing practice shows his lack of leadership, and if you listen to, I was listening to James Washington be on an interview on The Fan this week, and basically he said he's an inspiration because they watch him work hard. He's not really a leader, but that's okay. I mean, he's productive. You don't need that. But again, the offense, I don't blame the offensive line. People are criticizing them for bitching about Le'Veon Bell not being there. He jerked them off. He basically told them he was going to be there and then didn't show up. So, yeah, I'm okay with them being pissed, but we need to lay off the offense. We need to start looking at what the problem of this team is. It is not a Super Bowl caliber team. It has not been a Super Bowl caliber team the last few years. It's been a good offensive team. You take away the early 21st century St. Louis Rams, and there has never been a team with a piss-poor defense that has won a Super Bowl. So people can say all they want about this being a Super Bowl team. It is not a Super Bowl team with that defense. That's my rant. Woo-woo. What are you thinking about that?
I'm with you on all fronts. I mean, I have a couple thoughts on a couple other things. Because we're doing this work, and, football's a big game out there. I'm paying a lot more attention to football. I don't know the personnel of even the Steelers or a lot of teams in the league like you guys do, but couldn't agree more. I mean, those defensive backs, particularly in the corners, have been terrible in the first 2 weeks of the season. So you look at the coaching staff, why is that? And second of all, their size and everything else. I mean, it just seems like the drafting, to me, pretty much seeing most of the plays of the first two games, and tonight could be a horror with the way Fitzpatrick started off the season hot. But, yeah, I mean, defensive backfield, awful, needs change. Linebackers, yeah, terrible. Beyond some of the penalties and some of the other nonsense, not stopping anybody. As Fletch said, I could go to the tight end position. I could catch the ball down the middle the past couple of weeks. That's a linebacker responsibility in many cases. So, again, I looked at the coaching staff, too. I mean, I think I think Tomlin's won a lot. I think he takes a lot of criticism because of the football intensity out there. But, if you got Roethlisberger ignoring the offensive coordinator, which I didn't see, and you see Brown throwing
it might have been more innocent. That's just me looking at that and picking up on it. Nobody really said anything, but it just didn't give a good appearance as he's walking away.
Well, that's my point. I mean, I don't think I'd be doing it for show or the cameras. I wouldn't give a shit about the cameras, but one criticism of him that you hear back here at East is, quite frankly, and one of the players alluded to it. One of the linemen basically said, well, not a lot of discipline in this locker room. So, I mean, if you're struggling and you see that kind of offensive breakdowns, or you see, get your butt over there and say, okay, guys, don't be doing this on camera. Get it together. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't really think he does that. He kind of takes a pretty safe route most of the time, even in the – I'm not saying you want to yeller and scream or look at me like Parcells was or Joe Madden, Fletch's buddy. But, I mean, Tomlin seems to he needs to take the bull by the horns a little bit with some of this stuff, a little bit more than he does. At least it appears to me in watching this a little bit more. I mean, I agree. I think the offense, obviously you want Brown in there. I mean, I get tired of these guys at that position always carping. They want the ball. It's not about how many catches you have or how many, what your suit's like at the award show. It's how many games you're winning. That position, because honestly, the way they've changed the rules to a tag football game in some regards, and the passing game in my regard, has caused that position to become ego city. I mean, I think Bell is clearly, or Brown is clearly a top flight receiver, one of the best in the league. On the other hand, he shouldn't be carping so much. They are scoring some points, getting some other guys involved and making them threats, whether it's Schuster or even Washington or some of these other guys. It's only going to help him in the long run. I think he'd be bright enough to know that. The other guy, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty cold about this. Fletch is going to call me a cold-hearted bastard. We're going to offer you $14 million a year. You're a franchise player. You're part of the Players Association. You don't like it? Too bad. Okay? We got all the leverage. We'll move you for a bag of footballs if we want to. Get in or shut up and sit out. That's how I would be. They're not going to win the Super Bowl if he's there. So as Branch Rickey used to say, maybe it's not right for the season ticket holders who wanted to watch an exciting guy play, but they're not going to win it anyway, so we weren't going to win it with you. We certainly aren't going to win it without you. What's the difference? I'm sorry we didn't say thank you. You know what? Grow up. Professional football again. But the one thing I think that everybody should step back and think about, take a look at the schedule, though. There's not that many guaranteed losses in there the rest of the way. Tonight, I could see them winning tonight. It might be horrible defensive football, but I could see them. Tampa Bay's no world beater. Baltimore, they always play well against Baltimore. That's next Sunday night. Atlanta, I would say that's a loss. Cincinnati, they've dominated Cincinnati for years. They got Cleveland again. Cleveland was really lucky to get out of there with a tie. The first 7 games, could they be 5-2, 4-3? Yeah, I think they easily could be. And look at the second half. Baltimore again. Carolina, probably a loss, assuming injuries and stuff don't tear them apart. Then the next 2, I think, are iffy. Jacksonville and Denver. It's at Denver, too, where they never play well. San Diego, that clearly team was a little bit overrated, as we saw again yesterday. They can't stop anybody either. Play in Pittsburgh, too, December. Oakland, I know, Gruden doesn't seem to have any magic this year, does he? New England, I'd still probably say a loss, even though New England's kind of come out of the gate slow. New Orleans, 50-50. Cincinnati, end of the season. They could easily finish 10-6 as bad as this defense is. So I don't think it's any time to panic. What I would be doing, though, is I'd be really going to work on the defensive side of the ball and figure out how, with the talent they have, they got to be speed, they got to blitz more, whatever they got to do, I don't know. I'd be doing that. And I would really even go more to a spread offense, and I'd be getting more people involved. I'd be almost, kind of a speed ball type of thing, hurry up a lot more. Those receivers that they've got, Washington and Schuster, are going to pose problems for most opposing teams along with Brown. And James has been better than anybody's ever given him credit for over his career. So, Roethlisberger's personality aside, he does put up the numbers. He certainly can spread the ball around. I'd be focused on that, and I don't think the season's completely lost yet. I really don't. Despite what some people think. That schedule's not the most difficult. There's probably a good 8-8 guaranteed in that. A couple more upset wins or a couple more good wins in there. You're looking at a 10-11 win season. If you're going to win the Super Bowl, don't think so. Go deep in the playoffs, don't think so. No panic time to me. So,
man. Well, I think those are certainly some valid points. I think the Mud Pie Man certainly has some thoughts there too.
Well, let's talk stats for a second, fellas. Teams that let's say between 2007 and 2017, there are 52 teams who began the season 0-3, and I know this, even if the Steelers win, they'll be 0-2-1. But here's the thing about those bad starts. None of those 52 teams made the playoffs. Yep. So tonight becomes a really, really big game. The Bell Talk's really interesting. I'm not sure what value you're going to get for what's basically a rental player. He'd have to sign his franchise tender first and then have to negotiate with another team. That's going to be a tough one.
Yep, yeah.
Like Gary said, it's probably not panic time because I don't know that anyone's going to run away from this division. Here's the thing that's really strange. Think about this, guy. The Browns could easily be 3-0. Ruminate on that for a second. Marvin Lewis's team in Cincinnati will do what they do best, and they're going to self-destruct at some point. Joe Flacco has a contract, so he's not going to impress you very often. It's only when he seems to be playing for a contract that he ups his game. Looking at the Steeler team, the defense is abysmal. They're going to have to average 40 points a game on offense. And this isn't a short-term issue. For years, they've drafted late. They're addicted with their own success in many ways. Their philosophy on defense, especially, has been to select those best athletes, even if they were a little raw, and then try to coach them up. That's what gives you guys like Bud Dupree and some of those others. But here's the problem with that. It's harder to develop players now. There are fewer contact practices. You almost need to adjust your philosophy and pick someone who may not have as much upside, but is more NFL ready. So you don't have to wait for Bud Dupree to learn something other than a bull rush. He maybe you can get someone who maybe not be as explosive, but may have a few spin moves and things like that. So, you look at this league now, too, and the rules are in place to make success like the Steelers have enjoyed a real rarity. I mean, it's not designed to have long-term success anymore. Hell, it's happening in New England where the drama may even be worse than it's here in Pittsburgh. It showed last night, but it's not surprising. The Patriots, they entered this season on the heels of the most tenuous offseason of that triumvirate era, the Kraft, Belichick, Tom Brady era. You had a lot of reports of discontent and that Super Bowl loss, and there were hopes that maybe in that offseason they would get they would get on the same page, but it doesn't look like it happened. I think that Belichick's pissed because Kraft is getting, more into areas that were largely Belichick's domain. That could be even how he treats Brady, and they didn't really want to pick. I don't think that Belichick wanted Josh McDaniels, but he got him. And year after year, Belichick, he convinces the players to buy into his system. With you check your ego at the door. It's team first. Do your job, because it all came with a guarantee that maybe if you follow everything that I'm telling you, we're going to be in it at the end, and you're going to have a chance to win that Super Bowl ring. Players endured his bullshit mind games, the physical challenges for a chance at a ring almost every year. So it's been interesting how this is playing out there. Suddenly, players are beginning to rail against those methods. I mean, you have Danny Amendola and Dion Lewis both gone, made it clear that they felt overworked, underappreciated. I guess they didn't tell them thank you. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
That'll be the tweet.
I don't know that the players there ever got a really good explanation for why they benched Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl. So you have all this stuff going on in New England now, and we heard that this weekend that they were going to trade Gronkowski to Detroit, but he wouldn't have anything to do with it, so that went away. So, I mean, we're not the only drama in the league, and at least Tomlin is a little more entertaining at the press conferences than Belichick is.
Yeah. Although, don't you feel kind of bad for him that he has to do this 4 or 5 days a week now? Because, before it was after the game and maybe once a week a coach would have to deal with this. But, my God, what the hell else is he going to say about people tweeting?
Well, here's the thing. He expects his players to act like adults, and that's his problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the problem, Dave, is I wouldn't deal with it. I wouldn't deal with it as much. I'm not talking about tweets and whatever. You're here. You got any questions about what we're doing this week or our opponent? I mean, that's what I would do. I mean, Belichick, to me, they're just obnoxious. They're all obnoxious. Brady with his goofy suits and Belichick. It isn't because of their winning. I respect the winning, but I don't want that. But on the other hand, I wouldn't sit here and be – I mean, I don't know if I'd even talk about Bell. I mean, I'm certainly not a complete organization guy, but I would stop the discussion, okay? When there's some movement on him coming back or we're going to make a move, we'll talk to you about it. Any other questions? I mean, I just think, I think you create your own problem when you do that, in my view.
That I agree with, but what do you do with an Antonio Brown? I mean –
you don't. You let it go.
I think you can't stop what he's going to do, but
exactly. And I don't think in this situation with what he's doing here, it warrants a 2 or 3 game suspension.
No. I mean, I wouldn't have liked showing up for practice, but
it's different.
But also, don't come out in press conference and say that I disciplined him.
I agree with that. Just ignore the situation. We're here to talk about
decision. We're moving forward with our decision. Any questions?
Yeah.
I'm not going to answer that one. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. We got an opponent this week. Want to talk about that?
It's just
injuries.
It's a different world than Chuck Noll and Vince Lombardi had to deal with. You have these guys with enough money to live the rest of their lives before they play a game, in the most part, after they get drafted. So it's not the fact that you can threaten to cut him and all of a sudden he doesn't know where his next paycheck's coming from. Unless they've blown it, they have enough money in their account for the rest of their lives. So it creates a little more boldness, and it's a little tougher on managers and coaches. That's why I always kind of shun the Lombardi-Noll comparisons, because it's a different world.
Well, I mean, as Fletch said, I'm not sure the Patriot model's right either, obviously, when some of these guys are coming out saying what they said. But I do think that, it's kind of like, to me, the more attention you give it, I think the worse it gets. Like, then you got offensive linemen commenting on stuff about him being out or his behavior, whether it's Bell or Brown. I mean, we just don't need it. Like, let's focus on what the task is at hand. The task isn't about, what tweets, Brown sent out this week. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. We got a machine here. He's part of it. I mean, that's the message I would send, and I'm certainly not a corporate guy, but I think in some cases you almost have to get like that in this environment. Because it cuts it off. I mean, that's why New England didn't have a lot of that nonsense. In baseball you don't see a lot of it because there's so many games. But, in the hockey teams it's a little bit more homogenous group. And, it's a little bit of a different sport. But, they don't really talk. I mean, Carlson's wife does all this nonsense. They were going to move Carlson anyway in Ottawa. But they moved him much quicker when his wife did all this nonsense and besmirched the organization with, threatening the other wives or something like that. I mean, get rid of this stuff, and don't talk about it. And I think if you do that, I think eventually Brown can chirp all he wants. Nobody's going to be listening to him as much, So, I think some of the fans would actually appreciate that too, quite frankly, even some of the younger ones. So, just my view. Yeah.
Well, on the other end, Chris Berman sitting down with Ben at this juncture, and he looks like two Chris Bermans at this point in time in his career. Big man.
I haven't seen him in ages, so I have to check it out. So.
He's a big man.
Bob,
man.
They're both big men. They're both hanging out and eating a lot of hamburgers by the fire, it looks like. So.
Oh, I'll tell you. I bet you're not the donut burger, though.
No.
Well, I got to tell you, I was at the '94 All-Star Game working the media, and I got into the elevator, and Chris Berman got in the elevator wearing a pink sport coat. And let me tell you something, that was a bold move for a man of his size to do that. And I just I looked at him and I said, "That, my friend, is a jacket." And he said to me, "Do you like it?" I said, "That, my friend, is a jacket."
As only the rudest man in America can say to him. Oh, man. Now we're going to go to our lightning round here, Fletch. We're going to go to our big moments of the week, and you're going to lead us off.
Well, guys, Tiger Woods is my story of the week. 5 years since his last victory. Think about this. This is someone who was the greatest ever to do it. That he was left for dead by most of the golf establishment. Hell, he couldn't even walk without pain a year ago, and he's a PGA Tour winner 365 days later. Okay, so, maybe that last round was over par, which is a very un-Tiger-like thing to do when the victory's near. But I maintain that golf gets more exciting with him around. And with him coming off this victory, I'm even more excited for the Ryder Cup. Let's beat those imperialistic, hygienically challenged Europeans, and let's have Tiger lead the way.
I got a little goosebump. What would you call those hygienically challenged Europeans?
Imperialistic, hygienically challenged. That is just absolutely.
What would you call them? What's your name for them?
They're bushers. They are bushers, Dave.
They're bushers. Brought to you by the people at Fresca, the Busher mention of the week. Oh man! Well, I like it, but can I mention something about the PGA playoffs as you mentioned this, Fletch? Is there any more insane playoff in sports? You don't have to be involved in one of the playoff tournaments if you have enough points, and then you win the tour championship, but you don't win the playoff.
I don't understand.
It's kind of stupid.
It's goofy. It's like that auto racing nonsense they did. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Top 120 players, and but if you don't make the top 60 in the next tournament, you're out of the playoff. Yeah, it's just insane. But I agree with you, Fletch. That was fine. I mean, NFL viewership was down significantly yesterday because of him, and that's just a hell of a story. I mean, his back was fused together, for God's sake. So you called that a few weeks ago.
I did. It was a little premature.
Just tells you how good he is. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you like him, love him or hate him, just tells you how good he actually is. So.
He's no Jimmy Garoppolo, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, poor Jimmy.
Oh, man. Mr. Gary, what are your thoughts?
I got three-part. I think they're all. One of them's a little home, but I'm going to say it anyway. The other two I think are interesting, and one's kind of to the media again, a big FU. The Old Dominion Virginia Tech game, particularly with the back and forth shifting tides. Didn't see it live, saw a lot of highlights. Got to be the moment of the week. You know, you got a team that was pretty much an FCS program up until recently. I think they just went to the FBS, but they're a long way away, playing a really conference nobody pays anybody attention to. Can only get to the games on streaming and go in and dump one of the biggest rule-breaking, non-academic, testers in the world in Virginia Tech. They go in and dump them. That's my highlight of the week. Got two other small.
You know they actually had 632 yards against the vaunted Virginia Tech defense?
I think it's
fabulous. They came into the game 0-3, losing to Liberty 52-10.
I think it's fabulous. Nice. For all these 73-3s and Oklahoma dominating everybody, and we gotta keep getting fed Ohio State and Clemson all the time and stuff like that. I think it's good to see this stuff going on in college football. We've always had it in basketball. Really rarely have it in football. Glad it's happening. I think the rules have been part of it there too and changed it. I think the fact that all this streaming and stuff has made some of these kids actually want to go to these programs that can. I think there's a lot of good going on there. I don't think we're going to see Old Dominion go dump LSU next. But on the other hand, it's good to have it happen. And there's certain programs, I don't know, when Vic was there, Virginia Tech to me has always been one that, always push the envelopes of decency like we've talked about in college sports before. Two other things. First, the media FU. Good heavyweight fight in Britain. Anthony Joshua, who's a very charismatic personality, good like Lennox Lewis probably, maybe not as good as Lewis, but big jab. Yeah, he's fighting his hometown in Wembley Stadium. Fights a good opponent, only the fifth time two Olympic gold medal winners have ever faced off, and Alexander Povetkin, a Russian, who's a little bit limited but still a hard puncher, a Tyson type of puncher. 90,000 people come out live. Wow. Barry Hearn's DAZN streaming service signed up a huge number over the weekend for it. Again, the American sports media and your arrogance boxing is dead. Wilbon and Kornheiser, my Joe Maddens of the world. Why don't you read about it? Why don't you look at some of the facts before you start chirping? 90,000 people, huge ratings on DAZN. Good fight between two Olympic champions. It was actually a pretty good one while it lasted. Last but not least, this is homerish Pittsburgh, but I got to say it. Dukes at Hawaii. Great event. I'm one of the few nuts that stayed up till 3 o'clock to watch it to the very last play. Hawaii did what you expected to do and took over from the midway through the second period on, but with no A.J. Hines, who's the top flight back, even in an FCS program. This kid Cunningham, who's huge, was injured in the very first quarter. Some really questionable pass interference calls, I thought, on Duquesne in the second period. They still were competitive. They went 14-7. They were competitive all the way through the first half, and they really didn't embarrass themselves at all. Great for those kids, great for the program, great for all of our alma mater. So I'd have to put that as a third one in there. So.
Boy, that was fun when they went up 14-0, huh?
It was really fun. It was really
crazy.
Fun.
Did you get a chance to watch any of it, Fletch?
I was sleeping at that time, fellas, but I did read the recap and went through play-by-play the next day, and when I saw that they were up 14-0, I thought, wow, I bet Dave's having a good time right now. Me, I was sleeping.
Yeah. It was fun.
And I will say a shout-out to Jerry Schmidt. You got some really good athletes at the skill position. Yes. Both defensive backfield. Kid linebacker, I can't remember his name, Italian name, number 18, very, very good. Hines is a big-time back. That kid Cunningham is huge. Looks like he's this is going the right way. I don't think we're going to be challenging Ohio State soon, but right way. So, it's a shout-out to him. They were certainly competitive against Hawaii, which had a bunch of typical Division I receivers and running backs. They were competitive for a little while, which is all you can ask.
Faster, bigger team. But
yep.
Now my big event of the week is a personal one. I got the chance. Got a call. I went down to the Palumbo Center Saturday morning. Coach Bird, who is one of the best, if not the best, coaches in Pittsburgh of our women's team, had some recruits in, and one of them was on the Swedish national team. She was the daughter of Stu Johnson. You remember Stu Johnson from the ABA?
I do.
I got the chance to sit down with him and talk to him for almost an hour. Here's a man, one of the most underrated ABA players of all time. He's second in career ABA field goal attempts, had one of the smoothest shots you'd ever want to see, 10th in three-point field goals made, 9th in points scored. I mean, you know, the man had an incredible career in the ABA. And, you know, he was, and I didn't realize this until I was talking to him, he was either the first or one of the first Division I NCAA basketball players, African-American basketball players, to play in the South. He played for Murray State. And this was in the 60s. And, you know, it's the 60s certainly as even though we were coming to integrate sports and integrate society, was still horrible in the South, horrible for these players. He actually went down, he was recruited by Kentucky, Adolph Rupp, and because he had seen him, and he's light-skinned, and Adolph Rupp thought he was white. When he got down there, basically told him it's not time for this yet, and kind of sent him on his way, wanted him to go to junior college instead of go somewhere else. So he ended up in Murray State, who was integrating. Just, you know, some, well, not great stories, but just interesting stories of what he went through in the South at the time. And just, you know, you just give so much, so impressed that a man like that could survive such situations, and not only survive, but excel. He was drafted by the Knicks in the third round, and was told he'd make the team, found an apartment. You know why he didn't make the team? Because back then, you had to have an even amount of African Americans so they could room together, and he was the fifth man. So he got cut for just such a horrid reason, and that's how he ended up in the ABA. And he ended up playing in Europe till he was 55 years old. He got paid to play until he was 55 because his jump shot
I did not know that.
Incredible.
For a man that
led
big.
the league in just about every league. He led the league in scoring except for the ABA, but as I said, he was 10th there. And most importantly, he told me some great stories about the Condors and your favorite, Fletch, John Brisker, who he claimed wasn't a bad guy at all. He when he was off the court, he said he was actually not a bad guy. He said he put on this persona once the ball tipped. And he's still as perplexed as everybody else is how John Brisker disappeared while being a mercenary in Uganda. And he basically told him, why the hell would you go there with a guy like Idi Amin? But he said that Brisker, basically his thought process was he wanted to help the plight of the of his instead of African Americans, he wanted to go back to Africa and help as much as he could there. And he knew times were tough there, and that was his way of trying to help. And you know, ended up never hearing from him again. But it was just an incredible honor meeting this guy and talking to him. Just a deep guy. You know, a lot of great stories. Certainly hope his daughter commits here. But he also, and I learned this in kind of researching before I went down there, he set the ABA scoring record with the Condors of 62 points in a game against the Floridians. So at one point in time, a Pittsburgh Condor held the ABA record for points in one game. But I'll tell you, it was just an amazing experience. And you know, certainly it's in a week that a lot of good things happened. To me, that was one I will remember for a lifetime.
Oh, sounds like a great experience.
He had a pretty game, Dave. He had a pretty game. I saw him in the ABA a couple times in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, Newport News, Virginia Squires. My brother was drafted by the Virginia Squires, never made it. They used to play some neutral zone games in the exhibition season, too, at Hershey. I saw him in Virginia, though. He has a beautiful game. He could score. He could do a lot of things. He was tough to guard. He really wasn't on that many good teams. So to pile up all those points on those good teams, on bad teams, a lot of bad teams. I mean,
he actually played for 12 different ABA teams in 10 years. He was the most traded player probably in basketball history.
Yep.
But you're right, he excelled on all of them.
Yeah, he really did. I think he played with Chamberlain, too. He was out in San Diego with Chamberlain,
yeah.
I think.
Chamberlain was coach then of the Conquistadors.
Yep. Yeah, he had a pretty
good
really put the ball in.
Speaking of pretty, Gary, the thing that I miss about the ABA was the red, white, and blue ball. You could see the spin. I love that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well, one thought on the ABA and Brisker. I mean, there's a. You guys should get it if you haven't. But Pluto has a book which you probably
Loose Balls.
Yeah,
right. We have it.
But there's also a documentary in the ABA, and I think it's I think it's HBO. It's the same name, and they talk about
the St. Louis team.
Well, there's that one out there. That was in the 30 for 30. And I'll have to go find it out in my basement. But there actually is a documentary as well. And I think it's called Loose Balls. But I remember this when I was a kid, going with my dad and going with my brother to some of those games. That league had a lot of fighting. And there were some great fighters in that league. Warren Jabali, remember him? He was like a murderer. Yeah. He made Brisker look like a choir boy in terms of being able to fight. And, I mean, that was a rough league because those guys had no other option. And,
who was the tall white center with the nets who died in a plane accident?
Wendell Ladner. Wendell Ladner was.
He was a nasty guy.
He was a good fighter. Yeah, I mean, and that was a rough league. So to put the ball in the basket in that league, even with all the rules, I mean, let's face it, the NBA today is the ABA.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
They don't give those enough credit.
So bring that red, white, and blue ball back. Let me see the spin.
Yep.
Oh. It was awesome. I loved it. That was the first basketball I ever owned was a red, white, and blue.
Oh, we all bought those. We didn't buy the NBA balls when we were kids. We bought the ABA ball.
Oh, absolutely. Although he told me an interesting story about the NBA. When the NBA took the 4 ABA teams, they made an agreement to all the ABA players that didn't go over to the NBA. Were supposed to be covered with the pension for health and pension that the NBA retired players enjoyed. The NBA since then has refused to do it and has had kept these guys in court time and time again on appeals, and has yet to pay out one ABA player. He was telling me about that. And the amount of money they spent compared to what it would have cost to put these, because he told me there's only about 150 of the ABA players who've never played in the NBA left.
Yep.
And just mind-boggling that league would go so far out of its way to pay so many lawyers to avoid an agreement it made. Just kind of sucks, I guess is the best way to put it.
No, and this is the same league that paid the Spirits of St. Louis owners what was some egregious number. What was it, like $5 million a year for 35 years just to go away? I mean, this is the same league that did that. So, right? So, yeah.
No.
I mean, Silver's such a bleeding heart liberal. Maybe somebody ought to raise that to his attention. Now, I'm sure he'd say legally there's some precedent that they don't want to do it. They don't want to do something else. But there would, beyond the ball, all this ABA, promote the athletes, Duncan, flying through the air, that was ABA stuff. The NBA was a boring, until Jabbar got there, or until Alcindor got there, even with Chamberlain, some of those guys, NBA was a boring, plodding, rough league. The ABA was a wide open ball, fire the ball into the basket, up and down the court. It was a much better product, let's face it.
Well, remember when David Stern took over, too, the NBA Finals were on tape delay.
Exactly.
I remember that in college, coming home.
They were
coming home from the bar to watch the Celtics and the Houston Rockets at like 1 or 2 in the morning, watching that game. But oh my! Well, we're going to go into our predictions. We're going to start with you, Gary.
I got 2, 1 and 1A again. Yankees got to go down to Tampa, and some people in Tampa love the Yankees, and some people in Tampa hate the Yankees. And the way Tampa's been playing, I mean, Cash seems to have gotten to those guys. The Yankees got to go down there for 3, then they got to go to Boston. Oakland's got Seattle, which quit in July. I mean, Cano and Cruz and some of those guys quit in July. And the Angels, who have been dead for a while. I'm kind of predicting Oakland may sneak by a game, where they may have to tie or something like that, and they may play a game, which could be interesting. Okay. They might have to play 2 games. But I think with the way the schedule is, I wouldn't be surprised if Oakland – I don't know if it's a prediction, but I guess I'm throwing out the possibility Oakland ends up hosting that wild card game, which would make everybody in Boston infinitely happy.
It would.
I think the Saturday night, I'm trying to decide whether I watch it or not because I can't stand either one. But Ohio State and Penn State play. I think it's going to be a horrible massacre. I think Penn State is way overrated. I think Ohio State's probably underrated. I'd love to see Penn State dump them with all that's going on there, but we're going to hear about all this, how wonderful Meyer is, how bad Meyer is. All the stuff's going to crop up again, just like I say every week. My prediction is Ohio State's going to murder them on national TV.
I tend to agree.
Like that. So
I tend to agree with you, and I tend to agree there are going to be hundreds of thousands of hypocrites that are going to try to be mocking Urban instead of and memorializing their man who did a hell of a lot worse than Urban did.
Right, pot calling a kettle. I'm going to put my earmuffs on. I think I've turned the sound off. You know?
Yeah.
So
right. I'm with you, man.
Yep.
I'm with you. Now, Mr. Fletcher.
Well, it's one of my favorite sporting events. It's the Ryder Cup. And the Euros, they've got, this just blows my mind. They've got 5 guys who have never played in the Ryder Cup before.
Wow.
The U.S. has 7 of the top 8 guys in the current Sagarin Pro ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So, to sort of balance the newbies, the European squad, they also have guys like Sergio Garcia. He thrives in the Ryder Cup. However, those other seasoned vets that they have on their squad, they've combined for just a pair of top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour since June. So that may not be the greatest people they have to get along with those 5 relative unknowns that they're coming up with. So here's what I'm going to say to you, Dave. USA. USA.
Oh, I'm goosebumping.
But it's going to be
friend.
It's going to be a squeaker, and it's going to come down to a nervous last day. But again, I say to you, USA, USA.
I'm going to get a message across the bow from England. Who is this Chris Fletcher guy on this Spreaker podcast who calls us a bunch of elitist, environmentally and cleanliness challenged Brits, and then chanting USA obnoxiously?
I think you said hygienically challenged is what I think you said.
I did. They're going to call me. They're going to call me a wanker, I'm sure. But you know what?
What are they?
That's fine. They're bushers. They are bushers. They're bad-smelling, uppity bushers. That's what they are.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, man. Well, as I just found out that Francisco Cervelli has hit a 2-run homer in the top of the first, I was going to make that prediction. I swear to God.
Did the camera go to Joe Madden?
The bastard, yeah. Is he hygienically challenged?
Oh. Did they go to Joe Madden? Did he have a smug look of disgust on his face?
Yes, he did.
He did. Oh, man. Well, I'm going to stick to Pittsburgh for my prediction of the week. I'm going to ask you if you realize this, gentlemen. Do you realize the Pittsburgh Riverhounds have never had a home playoff game?
Really?
Never. Since, I believe, 1999, they came into existence. They've never had a home playoff game. That's about to change this year.
Ooh.
They are within, if I'm not mistaken, they're within a tie of clinching a home field playoff game for the first time ever. And this is like the story that certainly doesn't get a lot of press, but they're having a hell of a year. They're 14-4-11. Do you know how many left-footed goals they've had? I'm going to bedazzle you with this. Take a guess.
Oh. I'm stunned that there is such a stat as the left-footed goal.
As was I, but it's here. It's right here.
Players don't score many goals in hockey, so I have no idea. So
apparently they don't score many in soccer either. 7 left-footed goals. as compared to how many right. And there's an icon of a guy next to it kicking with his right foot in this one. The left-footed guy is only kind of dribbling, but the icon on the right-footed goal, he's kicking it. How many right-footed goals have they had?
Tell us, Dave. Tell us.
26 right-footed goals.
I was going to say 27 games. I was going to guess like 30, maybe 35. Yeah.
You'd think they'd have more headed goals than left-footed, wouldn't you?
I would think.
No, six-headed goals. But most importantly, they've had two other goals. I don't know what the hell that means, but they've had two other goals.
Ball just rolled in.
I think that's probably the ones that came off the groin. Those are groin ones, Dave.
I got to tell you, I'm going to send you a picture of this icon, Fletch, because the icon for the other pretty much looks like he's bouncing the ball off his groin, ironically, as you say that.
Well, you know what? If it goes off your groin, it should count for two, because damn it, that hurts. And here's the other part. Here's the part that really, you know, I'm going to bring religion into this right now, Dave and Gary, and I'm sorry to do this, but here's the reason why I believe there is not a benevolent God out there. It's because, as you know, when you get hit in those nether regions, it doesn't hurt right away. You get a 2-second delay to think about, oh, this is really going to suck, and then the pain comes. That's not right. A benevolent God would not let that happen.
It isn't right. It should happen right away. You're correct. Oh, my. But, you know, groins aside, this is actually an exciting team this year. I've seen them several times, and I look forward to the playoff game, the first playoff game ever, and I make the claim. Are you ready?
Go.
They're going to go to the semifinals. They're going to lose to Cincinnati in the semis, but they're going to go to the semifinals this year. And and Ryan Switzer runs out of bounds. Okay, nothing really happened there that was as exciting as a Francisco Cervelli two-run homer. But let's do this quick before we end the show. Fletcher, score tonight.
42-35, Tampa Bay.
Mr. Gary.
I think Pittsburgh 35-31, something like that.
All right. I am going. Are you ready? Are you ready for this?
I'm going.
38-17, Pittsburgh. They're going to make a statement tonight.
Yep.
As they get a penalty that pushes them back to the 5-yard line on the opening kickoff, the 9-yard line, they're going to overcome, and they're going to win this game.
All right.
It'll look a lot like
and hopefully no one gets hit in the groin.
No, he did not get hit in the groin on that play. Ryan Switzer his groin is healthy on that play. So, you know, there we go, gentlemen. Enjoy the game.
Put your Steeler helmets on with the beers on the side.
Let me give you a Ben quote here real quick. Truthfully, it's a much bigger deal to the outside world than it is to us. There's your Ben Roethlisberger, Valley Honda Motors quote of the day.
Spoken like a true leader.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Ooh, I'm not even going to tell you what he did there. But anyways, James Conner gets tackled for a 5-yard loss. No, now it's a 2-yard loss. Okay, he broke in. All right, gentlemen, enjoy the game.
Gentlemen, nice evening.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
This has been a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.